Bruchim Aboim, welcome to everyone. Is anyone nervous about being here? No, everyone's like, oh, we are? Good. When we first did this, trust me, we were tremendously nervous. Anxiety flew through the air about what was going to happen at this Shabbos. Would we be able to really help in one weekend to make a difference, to make a change? And what we've learned over the years of doing these conferences, these Shabbatonim, that people's lives change. Your life can change. It's going to depend, quite honestly, on embracing something new and something different, a different way of thinking, a different way of relating, and most of all, getting honest. Most of all, getting honest. That's really what happens at this weekend. That's the value of being here. The value of this organization is sharing with each other and getting honest and realizing no one is in this alone. When my wife and I first started on our journey with our family, we were incredibly alone. We weren't, not just we were alone, but there was tremendous criticism and critique of everything that we did. The prevailing thesis around children back 30 years ago was Svei Petch will resolve everything. Just let them know they can't do this and they can't do that. You just put them in their place and be strong and stand up to them, be tough. And what we learned from the very, very beginning, what we learned on our own journey with our children, was that's not going to work. It doesn't work. And so we began a journey of trying to understand, well, what does work? What does make sense? How do we reach these kids? How do we help them? And how do we help them heal? And it's a fascinating journey. We've been on this for 25 years. Right? More than 25 years. Yeah, right. 28 years. We've been on this journey 28 years. When I first started, I was a professional therapist. It was incredibly humiliating at the beginning because I knew very, very well what everyone was saying about me or us. That you see what happens, you go and become a therapist and you use psychology to bring up your kids. This is why your kids are all struggling. I was very well aware of what was being said about us. And we had to fight our way through all that rubbish and work out a mahalach. And there were very few of us in those very, very early days. Very few of us were trying to think about really what is this sugya about? What's the real truth there? Obviously, we've come very far in those years. But in the early years, I just want to make an observation. And by the way, what we really like to do here is I'd like to sort of hand it over to questions. You know, what are you looking for? We'd like to have a dialogue. This is not meant to be a drasha, but I'm just giving an introduction here. So think about any questions you might want to ask us about our journey, the journey, this Shabbos, how to use it, how to think about it. Any questions you have, please, we're going to open up in a moment. But I just want to say this. When I started as a therapist, it became very clear that we were not turning kids around with any clever intervention or clever move. It wasn't going to happen. And it dawned on me in the very early years, and I said rather reluctantly, but I felt there was no option but to tell what I felt was a preliminary truth. To me at that time, it seemed the absolute truth. And I told people who were coming in, parents who were coming in with kids who were hitting 12, 13, 14 these years and beginning to rebel. And I observed to them, are you ready for about a 7-year journey? And I can tell you, when I said this 25 to 30 years ago, people stormed out of my office mad, really mad. like this? I'm coming to you to hear this? 7 years? Are you crazy? People cried. I was told afterwards, they walked out. They couldn't believe I was so harsh to tell them such a thing, to take all hope away from them. But I already knew that in those early years, I'd only seen one kid, one 15-year-old, one who turned around, just spontaneously turned around and went back into Beis Yaakov and got a life together. For everyone else, it's a journey. They were really mad with me then. Since then, I'm scared to say it. Since then, I'm really scared to say it, but I've sort of revised my figures very much.
Hold on to the seats.
I revised my figures, and what I find myself telling people, it really, you have to change your frame of reference of what exactly is it we're hoping will happen to our kids. What does it mean to return? Return to what? Return to what kind of life? What is it? We have to examine that. But if we're talking about returning to be a mensch, a healthy, productive citizen, and someone who, in all likelihood, will probably re-embrace Torah mitzvahs at some point in their journey, in a way that we, as parents, can appreciate and enjoy. We can fell from them in their journey. If we're looking at that, did I set the frame right? If we're looking at children who grow up to be a mensch, a fine person, a balmidus, sensitive to other people's feelings, concerned about their life, it should be healthy and productive, concerned about their relationship to Yahadus, to Torah mitzvahs, then the decade we're looking at is between 30 and 40. That's the place. That's
not 30 and 40 years from now.
No, 30, the age, when they're between 30 and 40. That's what we're really looking at. We're engaging our kids in the hope that we will play a significant role in their lives, whereby when they're somewhere in their 30s heading towards 40, those young people will be anachas. We'll be proud of them. We'll enjoy them and their struggles.
And that's not to say that on the way it won't happen before.
Correct.
That's just because I saw some faces and it looked like they were going to drop. It just means that that's when it really happens. But the journey is happening all the way up until then.
Right. It's not like an event. Nothing happens. They're just crazy, totally mad. And then one day, boom, they become. That's not the situation.
That's when you see it.
What you see is when what we've observed, and I've done with our own children, and at this point, just the numbers that I've been privileged to work with, we've both been privileged to work with, is obviously in the thousands and thousands. And I see a consistent pattern that when we do this work properly, we rebuild our relationship with our children, because it's going to be, in the end result, it's all going to be about our relationship with our kids. That's what it's going to be about. That's what it's going to be about. We're going to be the facilitators. We're going to help it happen. But we have to have that realistic picture. If you're coming here looking for aids and advice to kind of tweak your kid back in the right path and make things work out, that's not happening. And you just take a deep breath and just let it go, because it's the gravest error. The gravest error. Your kid will pick it up from you. Your child will know what you're doing, and they will resist. They simply will resist. And what we're doing instead is a different mahalach. To the outside, I must tell you, to the outside world, we're still, the world of, I refer to this as crisis chinuch. I've always referred to it as crisis chinuch. Avi Fishoff and his group refer to it as twisted parenting, and others do it, and call it whatever they want. But this is not regular chinuch. This is, you have to abandon. Most of us probably grew up with a roadmap in our brains of what normative chinuch looks like. We probably experienced it to an extent, more or less. And that doesn't work here. Doesn't mean you can never do any components of it, but it only works up to the point where it does not impede your relationship with your child. Because what we've discovered is the long-term recovery of our children depends more on our relationship with them than it depends on the brilliant insights and active actions of chinuch we impose upon them. And we have to just come to terms with that. In normative chinuch, the assumption is you can do whatever you want and your kid will bounce back and love you. And so you can be firm and tough and strong and disciplined and all the rest of it. In crisis chinuch, that will drive your kids away into sekanas nefashos. Literally into sekanas nefashos. There are critics out there in the world who don't understand any of this, who haven't taken the time to analyze this sugya, who haven't understood what this is really about and think we're all mad. They think we're absolutely mad. They think we're mate isurim. They think we're somehow like a cut, some group of crazy Jews who've abandoned Torah mitzvahs, and we're inventing a new Shulchan Aruch for these kids and for ourselves. They don't grasp that we're dealing with sekanas nefashos. They don't understand it at all. And that we're fighting and waging a war to help these kids come back, find their way back to being these healthy people somewhere between, like I said, the completion of their journey is somewhere between 30 and 40. So if you hear, the critiques are out there in the world. You see, if you look in the media, it used to be a ping pong game every other month in Mishpacha and Ami, where someone, one of us, Mask or us, someone would publish a great article about compassion and understanding and warmth and acceptance. And the next 2 months would be full of rabid articles saying, no, this is treif and this is wrong and this is the problem, because our kids feel entitled. They feel entitled because we're too weak. And they missed the point completely. It drove me crazy. I've written on this many times in the magazines to try and explain. They've got the wrong sugya. It's two different subjects. Regular chinuch and crisis chinuch are two completely worlds apart. They're different sugyas. We are doing crisis chinuch. This is not regular chinuch.
It's totally different mahalach.
It's a different mahalach. It's a different goal. It's a different purpose. So to have a conversation, a dialogue that looks like a debate between regular chinuch, when you have those things in your own head, the debate in your own head about it doesn't seem right, or some of your neighbor, or someone say, how can you let them do that? Who's letting them do anything? Number one, I can't even stop them if I wanted to. So what's the point? It's a different sugya. That's what you're here to learn, hopefully. And I'm so, for us, Kesher Nafshi is just, I realize when we speak here, this goes to thousands and thousands of people watch these videos. And we know the impact it's having worldwide. Worldwide. It's crazy. The siyata dishmaya of this organization, just not normal. It doesn't make any sense. But it's a dover tov. What can I tell you? But that's the sugya. You're here to learn crisis. When you hear things that make no sense, that seem to make no sense, it's because it's a different sugya. We went on this different sugya very, very much alone. In the early days, we were experimenting. We had no clue. We had think tanks. We fought and we argued and we debated because we realized kids' lives were in our hands. No one told us. we were trying to work it out. We got it right and we got it wrong, and we kept fine-tuning. Today, we have the picture pretty clear. It's pretty clear and it's pretty predictable what's going to happen if you follow this mahalach properly. That you'll see the nachas. We, Baruch Hashem, can I just mention this? And then I'm going to hand it over. Any questions? Unless you want to say something. Yeah? You sure?
Yeah, I'll after you.
Sure? Yeah? Okay, great. So, my wife is my mentor. I run everything over with her. She's just, the Bina Yisera is very valuable. Let me say that. She tempers my passion. We had just now, Kanei Nahara, 5 of our children came for Pesach and Eretz Yisrael to us. 4 married couples and our youngest son is not married yet. We had 12 grandchildren under the age of 9 at our Seder table. 4 out of 5 of those children at some point in their journey were not Shomer Shabbos. 4 out of 5. All of them are spiritual. How would you say it? How would you describe it? Interested.
Very connected.
Very
in their way.
Very connected. Right. Very. Forget yeshivish and chassidish. Let it go. Authentic. Really authentic Jewish kids. Trying to keep Torah mitzvahs and serve Hashem and loving every moment of it. And 4 out of 5 were not Shomer Shabbos at some point during their teenage years for some period of time. And today they are. I bring it as a raya that there's a mahalach, there's an approach, if we have the patience for it, and if we shift from short-term, looking for short-term results, shift out of that, and we have to shift out of normative chinuch. Let go of that too. And if we can do that, we have the potential to see these young people. I find myself in awe of them and their journey, because it's their journey, it's not mine. And that's part of the shift, is to shift to a place where I'm not orchestrating their life, but I'm witnessing it, and I'm living it alongside them as a signpost and a guide, but with zero external control. Zero.
And zero expectations.
And zero expectations. It's not a mandama in our relationship with our kids. It doesn't exist. It's just observing and enjoying the ride and the journey from that very, very dark place during those early, middle teenage years that were terrifying to us. Literally terrifying on a host of different ways, to hold ourselves together to be able to witness from the Zorin Bedima, the Rina Yiktaro, to really witness that. And that's what this is about. Shifting our attitudes, feelings, and thoughts so we can move to a place that facilitates our children to get to the place where hopefully they can get to. And I just tell you that I do this daily. This is what my work in the world is pretty much these days. It's pretty much all I do anymore. And it works. What can I tell you? It works. Yes,
I just want to say, you're all newcomers, I presume. And when we first start off, we really have little understanding of what these kids' journey is all about. And we're just hoping for like a quick fix. Most people, that's what they want from us. And they expect quick fixes. And they're very disappointed, like my husband said, when we say what we say. But their real healing is in the relationship, which I'm sure a lot of you know, but it's important to keep that at the forefront of moving forward with them, because that's going to be the key to them healing emotionally. And we shouldn't even be thinking about spirituality, because that's the most important. Spirituality can't happen until that emotional part of them gets to a good place. Once they're there emotionally, they have their own journey of wherever they want to be in their relationship with Hashem. That's not ours. But as long as we could just be there, support them, that frees them to then really address their pain. But as long as we get in the way, it's about us. It's always about getting angry at us and we're the problem. So that relationship is so important. And everyone should just be supportive of each other because it's not easy, but once you get it, it's really fulfilling because it enriches us, by the way. We change. And my husband and I would never, ever want, if we were given a choice to have just a great, in this yeshiva, that yeshiva, this Beis Yaakov, and we would never take that, right? Knowing what we know now. We're different people. And I don't think we could be who we are without our journey with our kids. So I'm just going to say, as painful as it is, when you come to that place of understanding, it's so enriching and fulfilling. And they learn from us. They learn how to embrace problems by watching us walking side by side with them.
Correct. I just, if I can just add to what my wife said, our eldest daughter who went off first, she was 14 when she went off. How many years ago? 13? How many years ago? 27 years ago? 27 years ago. I would say that we're reaching in fact, it was here at Kesher Nafshi 2 years ago when they did this sort of award thing. And, who likes this stuff? Nobody. We know that. It's like, okay. But they invited her up. I was horrified. I was absolutely horrified that Gedalia thought it would be a nice idea. She lives in Teaneck. And he invited her up. And when I didn't know, it was a surprise. And there, Motzi Shabbos, she was. And I'll be honest, my heart sank because, we knew, or at least I knew very acutely, that we messed up. How about that? Let's just be straight. We messed up with her. We did not. Listen, crisis chinuch, the term didn't exist. We didn't know what we know now. We didn't know. We made a lot of mistakes. And yes, we thought, but because we took advice from the wrong people. And we listened to the wrong people. And we were exactly in the wrong place. It was a miracle she lived. She was in so much pain and fear. She was just so gone in her teenage years. It was, to us, a miracle that she survived. That she survived at all was a miracle. We fully expected that not to be, and we had many close calls during those years. When it wasn't so posh. Today she's married, she's got a family. We were just there this morning to see her. But anyway, she came up that Motzi Shabbos, the story. And I was absolutely mortified because it occurred to me that here, so to speak, we are being honored for our knowledge about all this struggling stuff, which we learnt on her back. You understand? She was our first. She was our class action suit against us to break us. She was the one. The others followed afterwards. And I was mortified. I must tell you, I froze when I saw her. Totally froze. Usually I'm not at a loss for words, but I was. Anyway, I went up there to speak and to accept this so-called award. And I spoke to her instead. And I thanked her. I told her to take a look around this room. It was packed with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And I said to her, Liba, these people here are maker tov to you for what you taught us. We're here to honor you. And in fact, afterwards, she observed to us that a level of her healing became complete that night. She was almost 40. And there was a level of healing she felt occurred for her that took that long. that we as a family could be in this place. At her wedding, she didn't want to go out to the what do they call it? The reception thing where the girls, they walk the kala out and sit her in that wicker chair thing. What's they call that? Gwelas panim for the kala, yeah. So she didn't want to go out until she spoke to me. I went into the kala room and she was there, beautiful, beautiful girl, leaning forward, holding two tissues under her eyes where she was bawling and the mascara-laden tears were dripping down, avoiding her dress. And I said, "What's wrong?" I thought maybe she changed her mind. It was like, and she only wanted to speak to me. And I said to her, "What's wrong?" And she says, "Tati," she said, "I can't go out till you meichel me." You have to be meichel me what I did to you. You don't get over this stuff. You don't want to. I don't want to get over it. And Kodesh Baruch Hu put the words in my brain because she can't come up with this stuff. It just happens. And I said to her, "Liba, you don't have to ask Mechila because you gave me more than you took from me," which is the absolute truth and was probably the major component of how we got to this place that she was getting married as a frum young woman. Because we embraced that she gave us truly more than she ever took from us. That's this journey. All the speakers here, Kemat everyone has a story, relates to this sugya on a very personal level. Everyone here has a story, has a parsha. We're all in pain, and we all carry a lot of pain. These are our children. But if we follow this mahalach, if we connect with it, if we get to the place where we can see how they can give us more than they can take from us. Thank you. We have real chance to see them get to this amazing place where we have nachas from.
And even on the journey, if we can embrace this, we see their beauty on the way. We don't see that negativity that everyone else is looking at and saying, "Why are they like this?" We embrace them fully and love them for every piece of beauty that's in them. We see that, and we really do, if we do this journey properly.
Yeah. And we let go of the expectations. When they happen because Hashem, in His infinite wisdom, decides it's time for it to happen. Not because we orchestrate, manipulate, control, direct, do clever interventions. Kadosh Baruch Hu will decide if and when they will re-engage and in what way they will. We totally facilitate that nace. We totally facilitate that potential. We facilitate it, but we don't make it happen. That's up to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Okay, so this was like very light just to begin with, right? Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Please ask, please. Thank you.
And he has a lot of talents. And he's trying to make a living. follow the program that's over with years and we're trying our best to love him and work with him, but he's not exactly making money. He owes us $7,500, and so he pays it back. He doesn't pay it back. He takes a little more. He doesn't take a little more. And we started out with $2, like you said, which is obviously, thank God, I can end it. The question is, at what point do you say, it's not good,
It's a lovely question. It's a lovely question, which, on a personal basis, to the tune of probably, $150,000, $200,000. Been there, done that. One of the greatest interventions you could ever do is look him in the eye one day and say, having this debt on your shoulders is hurting you. Let it go. Yeah. Owing that money. Yeah, no, just absorb this feeling. Just feel it. Absorb the feeling of being able to look your son in the eye and say, I don't want you to have that pressure anymore. It's gone. You have no idea how far we go to get the results we get. I've walked away many times from more than $25,000. Many times. There's nothing, it's such a profound gift when you see him unable to do it. What do you think that does to his kesher to you? This is for all of us, right? But what does that do to his kesher for his feeling of love? I mean, clearly you see he can't do it. And he's struggling with it. What does it do? What does he feel like when his father looks him in the eye and says, this is too hard for you? It's gone. If you'll be a rich man one day, come take care of me. But in the meantime, it's gone. In regular chinuch, this is a perfect example how every one of our brains should be flashing that in regular chinuch, that's crazy. We're just enabling him, we make him into a user, right? I mean, come on, every one of us, there's not one of us in the room doesn't think that's crazy. Because the part of your brain in regular chinuch, it is crazy. Do you understand? It really is crazy to do such a thing. You're teaching him such bad values, blah, 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 blah. That's in the regular chinuch compartment. And that undermines our ability to help these kids. He's given you a gift. The gift is that he's struggling and can't pay it back. So the gift is he's opened a door in which you could do an act of unconditional love, avas chinam, to him by tuning in to his struggle. What does that do to his neshama? When you do it properly. By the way, not doing it properly, you don't mind I borrow this story for everyone. Not doing it properly is, look, you can't pay it back. It's Michael. Do you understand? That's crazy. That's abusive. Loser. You're a loser. You understand? Any indication of that, any nuance of that, and the whole thing was worthless and destructive. But when you go to him and you say, I've been watching this journey, and I realize as hard as you try, you can't get there yet. And I think it's a burden to you and it's getting in the way for your life. So I'm Meichel B'Leiv Shalom. Let it go. If you're ever rich, you're welcome to come and give it. I always tell my kids that. If you're ever rich, you're welcome to come and give it back to me. No problem. You know why I say it to them? For their covet. I say it to them for their covet. I don't want them to think I look at them as a child that will never make it. One day you might be rich. If you are, you're welcome to come give it back to me. For the time being, it's gone. Because it's hurting you.
And the truth is, with maturity, that can happen. right now you say he's 28, still young, and could be by you Michaeling him, frees him then to look at it and maybe try to figure out, I don't want this to happen again, or whatever. But maturity does allow not to repeat it.
By the way, I just can I just say this? I want to be very clear. This one story, one intervention, one sliver into the life of your relationship with the son is not going to fix the problem. Just this one intervention, let's not fool ourselves, won't change the dynamic and heal him. But that's why I say, can I borrow this story? Because it's a concept. It's a musig that we adapt and exploit in crisis chinuch. Do you understand? In crisis chinuch, we're always looking to find ways that we can exploit the crazy dynamics that go on with our kids' lives in a way that they can feel loved unconditionally. Because that's not what they experienced early on. Every single one of them is feeling a horrible, profound, deep feeling of rejection, of not being loved, not being valued, whether it's by us as the parents, they pick up nuances of our disappointment with them, whether it's the school systems that kicked them out, that gave them the face every day, whether it's the community and the looks they get on the streets, they're dealing with profound rejection. So I'm just taking this story alone. If you'll keep everything else the same and just change this, it won't do anything. You understand? I'm not a fool. But if you understand, when you start seeing the sugya of crisis chinuch differently, and you start exploiting these challenges and problems and taking advantage of them, and it starts building and building and building until it gets to that point. Like, I have some of my kids who say, Tan, don't be Michael, please, don't do it. Don't do it. They won't, and they'll pay me back. It's crazy, and they want to pay me back, and they have no more greater nachas than living, right? It's like crazy, living, denying himself so he can pay me back, because it's his covered to pay me back, because he loves me. He loves me, and he wants me to be proud of him. It's like crazy dynamic. Well, because I invested and invested and invested, and walked away and walked away and walked away, he got to that place where his personal covered and joy is to be able to pay me back. Do you understand? It works not on its, none of these things, these interventions on their own will change the life of your child. It's
a mahalach.
It's the whole mahalach. What's Hirsch called? The Weltanschauung, I think he calls it, right? The whole thing. When you do it all and you get the approach and you start doing this on every level. On every level. It's like a father telling his son, I think you have to stop fighting yourself with your tefillin. It looks like they're burning holes in your arms. They're like burning marks in you. Leave it alone. Let it go. You'll come back to it when you're ready, or you won't. That's your story. But you're going to have to stop fighting it. The deep sensitivity and understanding is bitulo zeo kiyumai. You understand? What do I have? I have parents who they take fishing wire and they take all sorts of things to try and see, did he touch his tefillin? And there's a whole dian, did he move it? Did he not move it? And they take pictures of it and they trying to measure whether it got moved and back on the thing as if that matters. Once he stopped doing it, it's so much better to tell him, I get you. Your struggle with Yardus right now is so painful. Those tefillin must kill you. Let it go for the time being. You know what that does? I once had a story, amazing story, with my Rebbe, the Matzio, the Mashgiach Shlita. So, So I once had a boy who had told me he'd stopped putting on tefillin. He'd also was at war with his father. It wasn't just about the tefillin, but the tefillin was one of those things he was at war with his father about. Putting on tefillin. Just put them on. Just put them on. I'll pay you. I was paying him to put it on before Shkia. It was like a whole thing. It was crazy. So I told this kid one day in a session, in my humble opinion, a loving relationship with your father is more important than putting on tefillin. And if you could only choose one or the other, laws out with the tefillin and love your father. Work through your relationship with your father. He thought I was crazy. He said, Russell, you're mad. What are you talking about? He was like connected everything, And I said, no, I think it's true. And he thought I was crazy. I called up. This is many, many, many years ago. The Rebbetzin was still alive. So I called up the house, so she answered. I said, Rebbetzin, I need to speak to Mashgiach for 2 minutes. I have someone at Bacha, I want to bring him over. This boy is struggling to your house. I need to speak to Mashgiach. 2 minutes. Can I bring him over? She said, fine. So I run over to the house, take him in my car. We go over there, sit down in front of Mashgiach. He gives me a shush to say the story. I say, this boy is at war with his father, and he's also struggling with tefillin. If he only has koiches for one, which should he put the koiches into? Mashgiach looked at me and laughed. He said, well, obviously, his father. The boy jumped up. He says, you're both crazy. And he ran out the room. But you should know, I met him outside the house and we stood there. We did the rest of the session in the Mashgiach's driveway outside. He was smoking cigarettes one after the other. And he later told me that he felt his healing started that day. That day where he knew he's got to work on his relationship with his father. He even knew that. Made sense to him. We have to exploit all these stories. In Crisis Chinuch, we exploit these stories for the bigger picture of healing. And Torah Mitzvah, we can't tell him, don't put on tefillin. You can't say such words. You're not allowed la'alocha to say, you shouldn't put on tefillin. Or you don't have to. You can't even say those words. But you can tell him, if you're struggling with it, I understand you. Maybe you need to leave it alone for the time being. We have to tune in. We're bitulo zeo kiyuma. We're looking for the bigger picture, and we get and that havana, that deep understanding of a kid, they get it, and it touches their neshamas very, very deeply. You had a question. I'm sorry. You wanted to ask me something? Oh no, I answered you already. Oh, okay.
I'll ask anyways.
I usually listen to my wife. I must tell you.
I'm listening. And I'm trying to understand. Trying to understand some of these things you're talking about. It seems to me this is general. I mean, it's not Jewish, not from, this is life.
Oh,
kids.
right.
So because they're not from, so now they get like some special. So it's supposed to be kids. They're mentioning everybody. Most people with their kids, they say we have wonderful kids. They mention, et cetera, et cetera. They're independent. They work. They're not from. So then, because of that, they get good parenting.
I lost you. I'm sorry. There was a question in there, which I didn't grasp.
Yeah, I think I have the same question that you have. I kind of understand what you're saying. For me, for us, also for our challenges with our daughter, they were like a while ago. She's now an adult. She's doing great. She's not full. So I kind of understand the question, like you say, for example, before that after, 20, 30, 40 years, I totally agree with you. Like maturity comes, and then you have naches. Is the naches related to the fact of children being full? Because they can be wonderful people and not be full. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the question is this: like you need to kind of give your credit card or do the twisted parenting because of the fact that they are not full, or because there is like a lasting fashion, it's like you said, that is more of a mental health kind of issue. And I don't know if I want to clarify what I was saying. So you think that they don't have a said with children. And as Rabbi said, my mother-in-law who's on the phone, she'll say, your kids are amazing. Okay? She doesn't understand what they've been through. She does to a certain extent, but every single one is beautiful child. And so from that perspective, my mother was on from that perspective. From the world's perspective, who is not from, they see our children and they see the part of what you're saying is the menschlichkeit and the specialness of who they are without the frumkeit. And so, the challenges are beyond. I'm not going to start explaining all those challenges are beyond. So we're living with that menschlichkeit. We're trying to, understand, that journey it's not healthy, and it's like, and if it does, it does. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I think that's what.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So
Thank you.
The way that I understand it, the way we understand it, it's not about being from Torah and mitzvahs, because that's Hashem's judging. We don't know how to judge that. For all we know, they seem like they're not keeping Torah and mitzvahs. Could be, this is getting recorded, so I hope it's okay, but could be their scar is greater than our scar because of what they've been through, and that they came to the point where they are in nachas in terms of being a mensch. You have people who keep Torah mitzvahs and they speak lashon hara and they hurt people and they steal and they keep Torah mitzvahs. But they do a lot of things also that, how do we judge it? We're not God. So the way we deal with it is that we do our part as parents to perfect ourselves in terms of ben adam lachavero. That's our job. Everyone's job in this world. That's what Hashem wants from us. Also keeping Torah mitzvahs, but according to what we're capable of doing. Now, if we'd be in their shoes and go through what they went through, who knows if we'd be any better? So once again, I'm taking myself out of judging anybody. When I see my beautiful daughter, and with her nose piercing and her beach blonde hair where it's really not that, and all the other things, and she's a mensch and she's a beautiful person, I have nachas, real nachas. Her journey is her journey. She has a lifetime to get there. For all I know, could be when she's 88. She'll do whatever she needs to do to be metaken what she came back in this world to do. I don't know when that is. It's not up to me. I take myself out of the judging. I'm just doing my part in my relationship in order to love her, and that is all I can do.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. Thank you. Let me just add something. We don't have time in this. This is an introductory session to say hello to each other and welcome you to Kesher Nafshi. It's like we're already in.
And
we
give
could.
you a little bit.
Yeah, my feeling is we could stay here now till Sunday and not move. We're ready to do this, but of course we can't. So I just want to make one tiny observation. The observation is, it is unnatural for children to move against and away from the culture of the family of origin. It is natural that children would want to continue in the path of their parents. That's natural. The assumption is something interfered with that process. I call that thing trauma. Something happened somewhere in their journey, and it's complicated. I gave one of the Kesher Nafshi events 3 drushes on trauma to try and take us into the world to understand that. And even that was just a Rosh Hashanah. We could spend, months and months analyzing the nuances of complex trauma and how it eats away at their neshamas. This mahalach is about healing the underlying damage that was done to their neshamas, to free them to get their lives back, whatever that means. Like my wife said, in relationship to Yadus, Yerdanisht, that's in Hashem's hands and their hands. As far as we're concerned, it could happen when they're 50 or 80 or never, and they'll come back. I've even said it to some of my kids. So you'll come back. You'll have another Gilgul. No. This probably wasn't your first time here. You'll come back.
Not our first time.
It wasn't our first. I've said it to them, and they laugh with me when I say it. They laugh with me. It's your journey, not my journey. My job, our job, is to observe the sugya, to work through, if we can, what happened, what unnatural thing happened. Not, again, don't do blame. None of us did anything deliberately. We're not nuts. We could still do something and have done something, as we did, because we didn't know. But our job is to heal that underlying damage, whatever it is, to free them to try and re-embrace their journey and find their way back. Whether it's about Yiddishkeit, not Yiddishkeit, it's not for me. And by the way, I want to say two more observations. One is, a lot of people push me in the world on this subject. I speak about crisis chinuch somewhere, and I explain what it is, and I go through the sugya, and someone always stands up at the end, every time. And they say, Rabbi Russell, nice drush and everything else, but why do you call it crisis chinuch? Why don't we just do this for all kids? Wouldn't they all do better? If I would say that, it'll be my last public drasha. I'm done. You understand? Although I did get close, very close to that line. I don't know if any of you saw the Coach Menachem show I did with YY. We did together. I came very dangerously close to that line, still getting, although 99% of the feedback was astonishingly positive. There was a small section of feedback that was astonishingly the opposite. Okay. But it doesn't mean to say we're going to stop. But anyway, yes, this is not, a lot of the yesodus here are good, solid yesodus of how to bring up healthy kids. They are. But here they're crucial. In regular chinuch, you can get away with not being so perfect when it works. Here you can't. If we're going to repair the damage. If we're going to go to that place of damage, then we got to go here. Authentically, powerfully, hopefully, with realistic expectations, let it go for the future. Don't have time, plan. Frumkai, then it's not Nageya. What's Nageya is repairing the damage inside them to free them to live their lives. That's the sugya. That's observation one. Observation two is when any of the speakers, I or anyone else, we all speak here. There's a shleimus to everything together. Any one drasha, I know it for myself. Every time I speak, I hold my heart in my hands because it's not shaykh to say something that shavi l'chol nefesh and won't confuse someone. It's not shaykh to speak and not insult someone. Someone's going to get insulted. I know because they tell me. I know, but I do it. We all do it as sensitively as we can. It's not part. We're dealing with such a complicated sugya. It's not shaykh. The benefit here is the benefit over time, absorbing all the ideas, absorbing the drashas, experimenting yourself with the ideas, playing them out, slowly but surely over the years, changing the dynamic. And what we're really looking for, at least what I'm looking for, is healing. There's some underlying damage, hurt to their neshamas that evolves around deep rejection, deep traumatic rejection. There's always something there. I met one kid in my entire career who I interviewed, talked to, and couldn't work out with him. Like you said, mensch, he wasn't from, he was a mensch, he loved his parents, he was fine. And we couldn't work out what it was. One of the tens of thousands that when I spoke to them and I engaged them, even though they denied to their therapist previously and their parents ever having experienced anything traumatic, when I spoke to them and opened them up in a way that I could help them see it, they all acknowledge it. Everybody else sees it. Everyone else. Everyone. They just have no clue what it means, what the trauma is that turned their neshama early on. What we're doing is repairing that to free them. And last question, then we're going to go. Yes.
Okay. So I understand it should be very general, not specific, because we're
Sure.
starting. The gentleman that asked about the 28-year-old son, right?
Yeah.
And the answer was extremely, extremely resonated with me. I'm the mother of that child. But
You recognize her?
yes.
Uh-huh.
So I'll keep it very general. So my question is really, really resonating. All I can hear it. The other side of it, more the other side of it, it was an adult, right? So are we feeding into the maybe that they can't do it? Or are we feeding into that they don't have to do it? Or is that so not our, we shouldn't consider any of it, that's not our place. Our thing is just repair, just worry about that healing, which I think would be tremendous. Or do we still have to keep those things?
So every case is different. If I can't possibly answer this question for everyone, because it would be wrong for some and right for others. It's just not shaykh. I'm sure I'm going to address this some point. I will. But the Rashi Prakim is very simple. The Rashi Prakim of the division between, you've heard the word enabling, right? And everyone's aware of that word, although few people understand how to define it accurately. But the division between enabling and doing crisis chinuch is a very simple one for me. Enabling occurs when you gift, indulge, give money, Michael, debts, whatever you're doing, and it's against your better judgment. You're guilted or manipulated into it, and there's zero benefit in repair to your relationship, then you're an enabler. Don't do it. Masha Enkain, loving gifting that's done thoughtfully, deliberately, intentionally, and the goal is the repair of your relationship, which this particular act of whatever I'm doing is going to repair my relationship with my child. That's not enabling. That's crisis chinuch. That's the division. But if you're guilted or manipulated, your kid's begging you for money for a concert and you don't want to give it to them, and they beg you and plead with you and tell you they're going to go off and if I don't go, I'm going to kill myself. And it's just straight up, guilt. You don't give it. I would say to my kid, I'm so sorry. I wanted to give it to you and I can't now because you just manipulated me. Do you want to go out and come back in 20 minutes? We could try this again. I just can't give it to you because that would be bad for you. Fine, and they got it. And let's address it, later on. Let's talk about it again. But no, if I'm being manipulated or guilted and it's not sharfing, it's not creating a bond between me and them where they feel loved, unconditionally loved, don't do it. It's not crisis chinuch. Crisis chinuch is thoughtful, intentional, and deliberate. And it repairs the damage. You see the difference. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Okay. If I insult anyone over this weekend, I'm asking Mechila now. Okay. But let me know after next Shabbos. Send me an email. My wife will see it. She'll probably agree with you. Take nosh, what you can get. The best is sharing with people. Let down your guard. Just be open and honest with people around you.
And by the way, if you disagree with anything, don't hold it inside and then say, oh, such stupid advice, or I don't know what they're talking about. Come and talk to us, talk to others, because it really is hard to hear these things in the beginning. It doesn't make sense. It does to some, but to others it might not. But that doesn't mean we're idiots. It just, I hope not at least, but it just means clarity is needed.
Okay, welcome. Well, we're 5:30. I'm speaking in the main forum. I think in the short. Okay, let's go.